Hey yo, it's Guido coming at you with a Tactics Talk, guys. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. You can see that I've got some Arty called up here. We're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to talk a bit about the campaigns. So I have finished the Excalibur campaign, and I am now on the Chimera, however you say it. Remember that the Excalibur missions, actually let's jump into those. The Excalibur campaign is basically over any number of missions. You just have to do whatever it is, however long it takes you to do it, and you're done. When you switch over now to the Chimera, you'll notice that it is in one battle, much like the campaigns, the first campaign missions. So in this case, you have to do that mission in one battle. We're going to talk specifically Alliance, because Alliance actually has quite a few artillery missions involved, and that's what we're going to talk about. And there are some of these missions you can actually do with artillery. In theory, you can do all the missions with artillery. All of them. Now, obviously, spotting missions and assist and things like that are going to be more difficult. Missions where you bounce, clearly, you're not going to bounce a lot with artillery, but in theory, you could do it. So I actually went through a bunch of these. I had 1 and 2 done, so I had 2 Alliance missions done. And in one afternoon, I sat down with the right artillery, paying attention to what the missions were, and I finished 6 more of those in one afternoon. So we're going to talk a little bit about this and some of the ins and outs, and then I'll give you one example with the Crusader of how I did some of those missions. So 1 and 2, number 1 is 25% of the total damage caused by your team. Yes, you can absolutely do that in artillery. Number 2, I did not in this case, though. These 2 are already done. Destroy tracks, you can do that in artillery. But where I started was number 3, which is specific to artillery. This is why I say you can do them all in artillery, because the other tanks can't really stun. Artillery stuns. Also realize that for the Chimera, it's tier 7 and above. I actually tried a tier 6 artillery before I knew that, holy cow, this has to be a 7, because I actually did the requirements for the mission, but I didn't finish the mission, then I had to dig in. So it's tier 7 and above. Stun 10 times, cause damage 6 times to enemy vehicles by shooting them. You can see that I did both of those. So that brings me back to the equipment that you choose, and to some extent this has a lot to do with what's in your garage. But in the case of a tier 7 artillery like the Crusader, pretty easy to get to, and if you've been around for a while, you probably have some of these tanks. Now the FV304 is unusable, as is the Sexton, so it's tier 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I would say, based on the Alliance grouping of tanks, the US and British tanks, that the Crusader and the M30, 53, 55, and potentially the 40, 43 are your best bets. The 207 and 308, 3805 are okay, but those are some of the best ones. And really this 53, 55 and Crusader 5.5 were the ones that I went to. Those were the go-to tanks. So let's get back over to the campaigns and we'll kind of go through this a little bit more. So the stun 10 times, the reason I jumped back out and showed you that is the Crusader fires fast. It's a tier 7 that fires fast. There's not really a tier 7 American artillery SPG that fires fast enough. 10 is quite a bit, actually. You need 10 shots, right? And unfortunately, it does not count stunning 2 guys at once. I tried that. It doesn't work, and that is quite unfortunate. And there was a couple times where I would have got it done when I stunned 2 guys who were together. So it is one event, stunning an enemy vehicle 10 times. Not 10 separate vehicles necessarily, just 10 times dropping a shell and getting a stun out of it. The interesting thing about this, and there's more stun missions later on where it's the time of the stun. The interesting thing about this is number 1 and 2. Number 1, all you need is a stun. So in some cases, you may just drop a shell near somebody just enough to get your stun and not worry about doing damage. And that's one of the problems with the missions set up like this, in that they sort of incentivize kind of crummy play. However, if you're trying to get the mission, I just throw that out there because there were cases where I did that. So you may just shoot at them. Number 2, when I say you may just shoot at them, I mean you may shoot at them and only stun them, and that was your entire purpose because you knew you could get close enough, i.e. guys hiding behind things, and you know the timer's going. You need 10 shots. Games happen pretty fast, so you really need to get that shell down range and stun them as soon as possible and move on to your next shell so you can get your 10. So that's the point of that. The other thing to realize is if you kill them, this is what's funny. If you kill them, you get no stun. Now, if somebody was next to them and you stun that guy and killed the one you shot at, then you'll get the stun because you stunned somebody. But if you straight up kill them, you don't get credit for the stun. So watch out for that one. That is actually quite annoying. All right, so we'll move on to number 3 or number 4. Something in those trees. All right, so here's one that in theory is for a TD, right? 2,000 hit points of damage while remaining unspotted. Well, guess what, SPG? You're almost always unspotted. So all you have to do is sit in the back with your SPG and manage 2,000. That's where you shift to something like the 53-55 or potentially to the T92 or the Tier 9 or Tier 10 British tank SPG. I like the 53-55. It's just more accurate. It's just a better SPG, and I'll be honest with you, it's pretty easy to get 2,000, isn't it? I mean, think about it. It is. You can get 2,000 with the 53-55 fairly easily. It won't take you too many battles. And then if you win and survive, you get the extra. All right, so this one is definitely done with artillery, and I did it myself. Number 5, the Grim Ground. Let's actually back out because I want to make sure it's the one. No, I haven't done that one yet. Number 6. Let's go back to 5 just to see why I didn't do it. Because it is ramming. Okay, so clearly much harder to do with an artillery. So we go to 6. Here's the stun, 150 seconds. There's another one later that's 180 seconds. And this goes back to my long discussion just a moment ago. Really what you want to do here is stun them. So fire away. And if you have to shoot somebody who's hiding behind something and you know you're not going to do much damage, but you are going to get your 10, 15 seconds of stun, man, make it happen. Because if you average 15 seconds of stun, then it's going to take you 10 shots. This is one where you would really like to stun 2 people. And so I did a lot of shooting right between guys where I knew I really wasn't going to damage one or the other too badly, but I was going to get both of them stunned. And then that entire amount of stun goes towards your points or your 150 seconds. So again, incentivizing kind of bad gameplay. But if you're trying to get this mission done, that is one of the things that you can do right there. Allies must destroy 2 enemy vehicles stunned or immobilized. Now, that to some extent is a little bit luck of the draw. But if there's a bunch of guys shooting them and you drop a shell in between 3 or 4, well, 3 or 4 is hard, but often 2 or 3 is not too hard. If they're in the scrum and shooting those guys, you're probably going to end up with those 2 guys being killed while you stun them fairly easily. If you're stunning guys who are way in the back, clearly it's going to be a little harder for your team to snipe them and kill them. Just look for those opportunities, but really prioritize the 150 seconds of stun, and you will more than likely get the 2 enemy vehicles killed while you have them stunned or immobilized. Also, it does not appear, from what I can tell, that you get credit for stunning dark tanks. It does not appear, from what I can tell, that you get credit for stunning dark tanks. So don't shoot tanks that are dark, i.e. they're not spotted, even if you know you've got a good shot on them. Now, clearly you can do these missions and attempt to win the game, so if you're going to just fire at them because, hey, I want to win the game, just realize you're probably not going to get your stun out of those guys, at least counting towards your amount right there. All right, so that was 6, I believe. Yes, 6. All right, so 7 I did not do. Number 8. Number 8 is cause 4 times more damage than the hit points of your vehicle. That's usually probably considered a medium or heavy mission, but guess what? What does an SPG have hit points wise? Not very many. The 53-55 I believe has 450. So math in public is 1,800 damage. Easy peasy. And I did it with the 53-55 on this one. Completion with honors is win and survive. Looks like I did not do that on that mission, and I may go back to those eventually, but just clearing out the mission for the standard setup right there is pretty darn easy. So there's one that you can easily do with artillery. Number 11. Cause damage 6 times to enemy medium tanks by shooting them. Well, clearly you can do that with anything, but I did it with my Crusader SPG. It fires fast. All I did on that was prioritize the medium tanks. This is the one that I will show you coming up, where I just fire at medium tanks. Because you have that top-down view and you can reach anywhere on the map, that makes it easy, doesn't it, folks? If I'm using a medium or a heavy, I kind of have to go to a place where there's some mediums, and I'm looking to damage a medium 6 times. Now, I do fire faster if I'm in a medium. One thing you could do here is take a tier 7 medium out with a fairly rapid-firing gun and just shoot as many mediums as fast as possible, and it would probably make that pretty easy to do. But in the artillery, I was able to just aim around wherever the mediums were and drop some damage on them. Pretty darn easy with an artillery, and I managed to do 1,500. That's quite a bit for a Crusader SPG. I had a decent game, so I ended up making it happen. But as far as doing this, pretty easy. And as a matter of fact, what you can do also is once you get the 6 tanks damaged, then look for that near dead and finish that dude off. All right, so that was 11. I did that with the artillery. Number 12 is currently going. Never mind, I haven't done that yet. And number 14, more stun. This time 180 seconds. 180 seconds. Or immobilize and a track of an enemy vehicle. Allies must cause 800. That was interesting because I believe I actually got it for the stun. And what I did on that one was what I discussed a little bit earlier. I was only looking for stun, and there was a poor E-75 that was hiding behind a building. And he was moving back and forth, and I just continued to drop shells on this guy, and I was actually hitting up above him on the building. I could not get my pipper on him. The shell was never going to hit him directly, but I was hitting near enough close to him that I was doing anywhere from 12 to 15 seconds of stun every time I fired at him. Never, I won't say never. I did very few damaging shots to the guy, but I stunned him constantly, and it must have been absolute misery for that player. Again, incentivizing bad play, and that's one of the problems with the way they have these missions set up. And that's what I did. Knocked out 6 of them pretty easily in an afternoon. Let's go, we'll jump into the replay, and I'll show you just one example of finishing that mission. And the other reason I want to bring this up is when you start digging into these campaign missions, you really, if you want to get through them fast, you need to read them and consider what tank is going to be your best bet. You have to look into your garage. I happen to have 400 tanks, so I have a lot of options. For people who don't have options, you may have to grind up to the tank that you need to make that happen, or look around in your garage and say, all right, which one of these tanks is realistically going to give me the best chance to do this? What situation do I need to put it in to finish the mission? All of those basic variables out there to help you do this. You can see that for me, I actually had this unlocked, obviously, since I've unlocked every tank, but I didn't have it in the garage. So I bought it, I fully equipped it, I put a gun laying drive, a rammer, and camouflage on it. I put food on it for try-hard mode. I put a pretty good amount of gold, and I really set this thing up, and I was actually using directives. I believe it was the orderly ammo rack and the aim tuning, mostly orderly ammo rack to get the shots going down range a lot faster. And then I prioritized the mission. I didn't prioritize winning the battle. And that, you know, that's just the way it is. A lot of people may go, Guido, that's really kind of dumb. You shouldn't have done that. But if you're going to sit down and go, hey, I want to get the Chimera missions done, you're going to have to pay a little bit of attention to what's going on if you want to do them in a min-max way, as in you want to do them as fast as possible. And then the point of you pressing battle is to do whatever the mission is first and not worry about the rest of it too much. So I'll show you an example of this. It's a pretty good game. It ends up being an ace mastery in the SPG, and to some extent I was doing the right things to win the game, but they just happened to coincide. I also had a good setup because a lot of mediums showed up, but let me show you that. Hopefully that helps you guys to start thinking about how it is that you're going to go about doing some of these missions. I haven't paid too close attention to them. The first campaign just basically happened as I played the game. I did have to pay attention on a couple of them because I would get stuck and I didn't know why, and I'd realize I needed to do a certain specific thing. It was a little bit easier because those were all over time, and you had as many battles as you wanted to take care of them. These are just like the first campaign. You have to do everything in one battle. And then the last one for the 279E, you have a certain set of battles, or a battle window, a window of battles where you have to do a fairly significant amount of whatever it is on the mission. But these are definitely all doable. And I wanted to throw that out there because, especially for the Alliance group right there that I just showed you, go back to the Chimera, the Alliance has quite a few artillery missions. There are some artillery missions in some of the others, but this one has, I think, probably the most artillery missions. I haven't looked too closely at Union, you know, because this only has one artillery country in it. China doesn't have artillery. These only have one artillery unit, right? So Japan does not have artillery. The Alliance actually has 2 countries with artillery, and we get to Coalition, and again down to 1 with just the French. So the Alliance one is artillery heavy, and if anyone's stuck on that, I hope this helps. So let's go to the example then. All right, before we move on, I just want to say one thing, because I sort of touched on it, but I think it's really important. If you're trying to do these missions, make sure that you give yourself the best chance possible. So Do not be afraid. I know I already said it, but I just want to foot stomp this. Do not be afraid to put a bunch of gold on your artillery or your tank or whatever it is that you're using. Do not be afraid to use food. Do not be afraid to use directives. Whatever it is, use a good crew. I didn't use a good crew here, but it's artillery, so I don't really need that. But for these missions, make sure you min-max everything that you can to give yourself as good a chance as possible, and that will improve your player experience. You will get less frustrated because you'll have more capable setup in order to do the mission. I wanted to foot stomp that one more time. You know, there's a lot of stuff out there about, hey, don't be a gold spammer, you try hard, all this other BS. Look, if you're trying to do a mission, set yourself up for success and don't worry about what everyone else is saying about it. There are no extra points. You don't get extra bonus goodies because you were a gold round orthodox kind of guy that didn't use them, okay? There's no points for that. Just set yourself up for success and you will have a much better game experience from that. All right, now we will go to the example. Well, here's the example. I'm in the Crusader. I didn't even bother with the camo. I suppose that did break what I just talked about, min-maxing. Throw on the camo, but for artillery, it's probably not that big a deal. We are here on Malnovka, and you can see that I have a whole bunch of mediums. So we'll go ahead and make sure you guys can see all this stuff. Whole bunch of mediums, and I figure this is where they show up. And normally I'd try to shoot that guy, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm prioritizing the mission. I want to get the mission done. I'm looking for a medium, and I'm hoping one will show up right here. Some airplanes go flying by, and then I just can't stand it. This guy is sitting there, so we'll just go ahead and zap him. In any event, he's a scout. The more scouts we can get rid of, the better. And of course, the 3002 shows up, and I'm immediately cursing myself because I broke my rule, right? There's a stun I probably would have had already, or a piece of damage, sorry, because what we're trying to do on this one is damage to medium tanks and destroy a medium tank. So be careful about changing your plan, right? Be careful about changing your plan. You're trying to min-max this, get this mission done, and I get very lucky. The S-51 is countering, and I did not move very far away. One thing about the Crusader SP is it has a very slow forward speed. So one of the things I had to relearn is if I'm going to leave, I need to do it in reverse, and then I can get quite a ways away from where I was. I'll do that for the rest of the time. Well, okay, so I lied. I go forward like a Muppet. Maybe it took me longer to learn it than I thought, but I am going to move quite a distance away this time, so I do not take another gold HE round from the S-51. Noted, I'm not complaining about gold. I'm just saying that's what it was. Notice that I am flinging gold like you read about. So I'm expecting mediums to show up on the hill. That's where they typically go. I'm watching the 1-2 line in case one's there, but right now the one I know about is the 3002, and the Panther is doing a decent job, plus the 2801 and the MT of keeping him lit, and there he is. Okay, so we'll just move that over, take a shot, and I go back, and there is one. So if we go over here, if you hit N, you can see your progress. There's also a way to put it on the top of the middle, top middle of the client right there. I just don't have that selected. I do not have that selected from my settings. So now I'm looking, I see a heavy come over on the hill, and that's not what I want. So normally, and this is the problem with these missions, normally I would switch my focus over to that heavy and try to help those guys keep him from going across. But all I know is I need another 5 hits on medium. So we'll go ahead and try to put one on this guy. Move around, there's one. So we go back to N, and we see that I've got 2 of the 6 that I need. So somewhere in there I need to find, I almost knocked that down, I'm glad I didn't. Somewhere in there I need to find a way to kill him, and I thought I was going to get it here. He just YOLOs forward, but he's coming at a Panther with a bunch of hit points. Then he decides to ram the Panther, and basically he's done. There's a medium. So I'm looking for him. And the AT goes down. So look at the team. The team is absolutely getting rocked. And right now I'm considering I need to reposition. So let's talk a little bit about general artillery stuff. Look at the mini-map right now. What's going on down there? You've got a JPZ-4, a Tiger P sort of droning through the middle. But they have won that entire eastern side. And I am on roughly the eastern side up against this railroad track. If they get through the Tiger P and the JPZ and light me by proximity right there, I'm done. Right? So I really need to start thinking about pretty soon, and I'm going to go ahead and watch this for just a bit, because that's sort of what I'm hoping will happen. these guys will start to get lit and I'll get some more shots. There we go. So we are now at 3 of 6. 629 of the 1,500 I need for the with honors. And of course, I'm also going to need a kill just to get the regular mission done. Now there's a Cromwell B. Right now I'm prioritizing living, so I move back a bit. I'm looking for the Crommy. Again, I've got a medium coming down, and now we've got this Type 4. He gets hit. I'm kind of hoping he'll get tracked or something, and then he just stops, which is very, very useful for me. And we'll put a serious thump. Well, I thought it was a serious thump. It's not very serious, but we're at 4 of 6. We're at 4 of 6 and starting to make a comeback. At this point, the better part of Valor is to preserve myself by getting back here. Now I've got a 3485M coming down. Cromwell's taking a shot, and down he goes, so I don't have to worry about him anymore. And their Cromwell is what I'm worried about. Now I know that the JPZ is my next spotter. Right? The JPZ will be the next guy to spot something like this. And as long as he's lighting these guys up, I may be able to get another shot in here. So I see the Leo coming in. Try to time that shot. There we go. 232 off of him. And we are now doing pretty well, right? What do we got? We've got 5 of 6. So I just need one more. And I need a kill, right? So this is what's important. I know I need a kill. So just shooting a medium at this point is fine. That gets me to 6. But if I can also get a kill, then I'm done. And I see this guy with 12 hit points. Very easily killable. And he comes in here. He tucks up. But he doesn't tuck up very well. And then he backs out a bit. And then he kind of sits there thinking he's safe. So I just aim a little bit past him. And we should get a kill right here. And voila, IR done, or close to done. And look at that. It looks like you don't get the damage if you kill him. Much like I talked about earlier. I'm pretty sure I was on 5. Did not realize that. So much like the stunning thing, if you kill him, it's not counting towards damage. It counts towards the kill. You gotta love it, man. You gotta love it. The good news is there are several mediums left. We've got the Leo and the Cromwell. I just need to find one of those two guys to shoot. And if I can do it, 1,500 damage. So back to the just basic artillery stuff. You can see I've pulled back to where I'm not the guy on the front line back there. I do need to watch to my right because that 1-2 line is vulnerable. There's a Cromwell there. I'm sort of in a bush. I'm just going to pause for a second. I'm just trying to cover myself up with as much of these bushes as possible. The good thing about a Crusader SP is it's a really small little artillery, and these smaller bushes are then useful. If I was a big T92 or a 53-55, I'd be sticking up above the bush and it'd be much harder to hide back here. Got an M44 there, so I don't want to go jump in that bush with him. And we got the GW sitting over here. He's been hit as well. So we have a small perimeter, unfortunately. It would be nice if it was a bit bigger, but it's hard to do so on this map because any of our tanks go over to the tracks. The Leo just has to come up to the other side of it and light those guys up via proximity, and all of a sudden they're getting Arty to death because they aren't. The enemy still has 3 of their artillery. So we're going to wait and see what's going to happen here. We get the Dicker. The Dicker is coming in. He very unwisely gets spotted. He knows he's in big trouble right now. Not a medium, not going to help me, but I do need to get rid of him because if he comes in here and kills us and I can't get another shot on the mediums, then I don't get my mission done, right? So I'm up to 1,205 damage. I'm really glad I didn't get spotted there. I was sort of just waiting for the artillery to nuke me. Down goes our Panther. That is a bummer. The M44 got rid of him. And now we've got the Cromwell, and that's who I prioritize. And then I have a complete flail with my G, with the G thing. I can't. Like, oh my god. And that's unfortunate because I got the Leo, and now I'm down to 1 medium, and I need to get a hit on this guy, and I just fire away. And it looks like... Nope, it didn't count. Cromwell coming on in there, and I'm thinking, oh man, this is not good. And down he goes. Alright, so let me change something just a little bit. In this case, it did count because I did have a hit on him while he was dark, and it did count damage because I did get the mission done on this particular one. Even though right now it tells me that I do not have it done, and there is not another medium out there. So it's a little bit wonky on how that works, but there you have it. And now we're just pushing out, having weathered the storm And I am just looking at this point for one of their artillery. Our Dicker Max is moving forward. The Cromwell is probably going to light one of them first, but we actually find something before that. Their other Saint Emile makes a pretty good, well, other Saint Emile, it's kind of the same thing as the Dicker Max, but their Saint Emile actually makes a pretty decent move. It starts moving in, and all of a sudden, boom, misses. Down goes the Dicker Max, and all of a sudden we're in big trouble. 246, I don't quite kill him. I'm thinking, holy cow, he's just coming right at me. The GW Panther, the Chimera's trying to deal with him over here, but now he doesn't have shots. The Cromwell is in amongst their 3 artillery, trying to take them on, and I'm just hoping that I can reload here. We're at 1451, so I need a few more hit points in order to get the completion with honors. There he is, still behind the bush. Do a little swing-a-rooney. He's not seeing me, so I get to aim in on this guy, and then we'll kill him right here. Dead man. No, I go right past him at 150. He's coming towards me, and I'm thinking, well, he doesn't actually see me because I'm basically double bushed right here, and then he dies to the GW Panther. Thank goodness. Gets us up to 1486. There's some extra damage in there from dark tanks that will be added on top, and that will help us get this thing done. We zoom on in here. I don't know if I actually get any more damage. Gonna move along. There we go. Crusader SP is sitting there. The M44. Take a little shot at him. Chunk of him at 209, and down he goes. All right, and there you go. Well and properly above 1500 at 1695. I'll show you the results after this as it comes up. But just one example out of the 8 missions that I did of how I basically built this setup so that I could get the mission done, right? I paid attention to what the mission was. I picked the right tank to do the mission. I put the pudding and whatever crumpets and yada yada on there. I loaded some gold to make sure that I was getting my best possibility of doing the mission there, and then used the best SPG tactics I could-ish while prioritizing medium tanks and not necessarily prioritizing winning the game. Happened to help right here because they had enough medium tanks. Those medium tanks happened to be some of the things that needed to be hit. But for example, the near-dead Leo, or not Leo, Panzer IV-S, I might have been better shooting guys with higher hit points who were moving in and doing damage than trying to kill that guy hanging out in the water there. But I was prioritizing the mission in that case. All right, I hope this helps some of you guys get through the missions right there. It is not the impossible dream. I think the Chimera missions are eminently doable for pretty much anybody in the game. The 279E are going to be more difficult, much like the 260, Object 260 was. But for the Chimera, I think everybody can pretty much get that. And this is just one example of many. And for you SPG players, you'll be happy to know you can actually knock out a lot of the missions with SPGs. You won't have to play too many of the tanks if that's not what you want to do. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it, as always, and we will see you.